For the first time in its history, Google's Android platform has captured a majority of the U.S. smartphone market. According to ComScore, Google's market share jumped to more than 50% for the three-month period ending in February. Apple came in second with 30.2% of the market, with Research In Motion losing share down to 13.4%. So is there really enough room in the market for Microsoft? The Lumia 900 comes out this weekend, a Microsoft-Nokia combination. With us to discuss is Bloomberg contributing editor Nick Thompson, who is also editor of TheNewYorker.com and joins us now from New York. Nick,
Hi, Emily.
Welcome. As always, let's start with the Nokia Lumia.
Yeah.
A lot riding on this phone, but we're already hearing about software issues. What do you think about from what you've seen so far?
Well, there are some software issues, but I think the bigger story about the Lumia 900 is that people pretty much like it. I mean, the reviews are fairly positive. They range from rapturous to moderately positive to slightly negative with some software issues. I think overall it's going to be a pretty good launch. What Microsoft is doing right now is they're transitioning. They're still, they're deep into a transition from Windows Mobile, the operating system that nobody liked, to Windows Phone, an operating system which people do like, which is distinct from Android, which has a distinct look from iPhone as well, and is different and interesting, and actually, my experience works pretty well.
When you think that most consumers are just going to upgrade the phones they have, though, how much room is there really in the market for Microsoft?
Well, not a lot. I mean, they do have a couple things going for them. One, they're Microsoft, so they have giant budgets, giant resources. Two, they're working with Nokia, so there are a lot of people who are accustomed to Nokia phones, are sort of familiar with Nokia, and they have Nokia's power behind them. Nokia's bet its company on this software working. They also have another great advantage in that RIMM, the number 3 player in the marketplace, is collapsing and falling apart. So the real question is whether there'll be 2 players, 3 players, or 4 players. If it ends up being 3 players, Microsoft has a chance of supplanting RIMM.
What about this price, $99.99 for new subscribers? That's pretty attractive.
Yeah, that is good, and there are a lot of things I like about this launch that distinguish it from the launch of in other product categories. When we saw competitive tablets released that were trying to beat the iPad, they came in at the same price. And Microsoft is coming in at a lower price. That's smart. They're trying to distinguish themselves, trying to make itself more appealing. Unfortunately, at least from a standpoint of competition, right, from a perspective of what can serve the consumers the best, a general principle is you want as many companies in this as possible. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot of room to compete on price because all of these phones are so heavily subsidized. So you can't really have everybody we don't really care that much how much we pay for our prices, how much we pay for our phones, since so much of the overall cost of the device over its lifetime is what we pay the carriers in our monthly subscription fees. But still, kudos to Microsoft for doing that. Then again, one has to remember that they have a serious disadvantage, a built-in disadvantage, and a hard one to overcome in apps. And that's part of what they've been getting hit for in the reviews. And they have a small fraction of the number of apps of the iPhone and of Android. And because of that, and because they have a small user base, developers aren't as excited for writing apps for them. So it's one of those things where once you get a lead, you kind of lock it in. The bigger your app store, the more people write apps, which makes your app store bigger. Microsoft being behind is going to have a hard time catching up there.
Now, you mentioned the potential collapse of RIMM. Of course, they recently reported earnings, and they were completely dismal. And yet, there are people out there who just can't live without their BlackBerries.
Am I speaking to one of them right now?
I mean, given that, can RIMM really collapse? I mean, where do you see this going?
Well, if you look at RIMM's decline in market share, it's catastrophic. It's been constant, it's been deep, it's been steep. Every earnings period they've underperformed even their lowered expectations. I don't think the company is going to collapse. They certainly have very strong technology. They have new phones coming people are excited about. They seem to have the company relatively stable. You hear less about griping, you hear less about chaos. Thorsten Hines seems to be doing all right. They have a chance to ride this out. They certainly have a very valuable patent portfolio. They have resources they can sell off to keep the company afloat. But things have been so bad for the company for so long. It's almost reached a comical stage, right? There's a story that appeared in the Wall Street Journal today about a party that RIMM hosts where someone gets stabbed in the neck with a bottle. I mean, it's at this point where it isn't surprising. Just terrible things seem to happen to RIMM constantly. And because of that, it's also taken some of the criticism and the negative spotlight away from Microsoft. Microsoft has been able to stay at this lower level without people kind of making fun of them and knocking them down a little bit.
For the foreseeable future, is this an Android-Apple race?
Absolutely, that's the race that matters the most. Android, of course, is doing quite well in this race because there's so many Android phones. They license their operating system to so many device makers that they've built up a considerable lead on iPhone. But yeah, that's where the real drama is. The secondary drama is Microsoft versus RIMM, and that's going to be interesting and important to watch.